You are listening to the Empowering Working Moms podcast, Real Talk with Dr. Prianca Naik, a show to help professional moms in survival mode to take hold of their lives and thrive. If you're ready to take powerful action to create your best life, then this is the show for you. I'm your host, Dr. Prianca Naik, board-certified internal medicine physician and certified life coach. Now let's get to it and dive in. You are listening to the Empowering Working Moms podcast, episode number 24. Hi there. Thank you so much for joining me today for this week's episode. I want to talk today about giving ourselves grace and space during difficult times, including transitions. Actually, it's interesting because right now I'm in a transitional phase where I actually am sending my younger daughter to daycare. My older one, my son, he started school, a new school. He's 4.5 years old and he just seems really happy and he's enjoying it. So I'm thrilled for him. And of course, adjusting to daycare is always tough, I think, more for the parents than the actual children. But I'm just figuring out my stride in terms of managing my time and doing more, picking up of both kids from school as opposed to my younger one being here and so on and so forth. So I am totally there with you in your adjustment phase and period, and we will all figure it out. So my process in my coaching program, I work with professional moms who really have the seemingly perfect life. They seem, like they're so happy, but they are silently suffering on the inside. I help them to know that they're not alone and that they can reclaim their power and confidence to have the life that they want, to enjoy their life, even when that feels impossible. And the way we can really enjoy our life experience is through learning how to give ourselves a little bit of room, a little bit of grace, especially when we're dealing with changes in life, massive changes, not so much this transition that I talk about with school starting, but these changes can include moving in with someone, getting married, moving in to a different city, moving to a different house, changing your career, changing your job, ending a relationship, having a baby for the first time or subsequent time. And all of these massive changes require a period of adjustment and therefore grace. And grace is really an important concept to learn, to give ourselves, because it is truly the opposite of how so many of us were raised. Push, 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 perfection, excellence, 100% on exams, a good class ranking, success, etc. Be tough, don't whine. Now, I am definitely not a proponent of whining. I just want you to know that, but I'm also a proponent now of being gentle with ourselves. And this whole gentle thing may sound lame as I say it, but it is a necessary lamosity, okay? We must work on being okay with B+ work. Things not always done exactly the way we want them to be or done our way, or some of the literal and figurative messiness of life, right? We have to learn to be okay with it. That really will help decrease our suffering. And as we learn to be okay with it, we learn to be gentle with ourselves. My mother, who is also a physician, was actually a captain in the Indian Army. As you can imagine, she is an incredibly strong woman, and she taught me strength, an awesome work ethic, took pride in her work, and was an example of a self-sufficient, successful woman. At that time, she was, in fact, one of the only female internal medicine physicians in my small town, the small town I grew up in. She had to fight to get her place. She ended up actually being the chief of medicine there. I mentioned this story because our parents' generation, our mothers, had to fight to work in a man's world. We still are, of course. Part of this is being tough, though, which to a degree we do need. However, often this practice turns into a mean inner critic. You're not smart enough, or thin enough, or enough, period. That's the inner critic. How terrible, right? How can we be happy when this voice lurks in the background? When I start working with my clients, I tell them one of the rules is no inner critic. Shut that shit down. ASAP. No space for that voice anymore because it does not add anything. I would like to add balance to this though, and that is where the grace comes in. Grace that we are enough just as we are. Yes, we have made mistakes. We're human, but we are always learning and growing. Nothing wrong here, doing just great. Giving oneself grace means being gentle with oneself, the ability to treat oneself as a friend or like you would your own child. Here are some examples of how we can give ourselves grace. Not obsessing, not going down the rabbit hole. Refer to episode number 10 on managing catastrophization. Acknowledging that when we've made a mistake, we are human and being perfect is impossible. So remember, B plus work. I know that we've been ingrained to wonder where the 1% on an exam is when we got, 99%. But truly, now that we're adults, we can decide to be good with that with a B plus work. Easy does it. Going easy on ourselves. Resting when we need to, let's say, and not pushing until we're completely exhausted and burned out. Getting help and not feeling guilty. Outsourcing and not feeling guilty. Caring for ourselves and not feeling guilty. As you can see, not feeling guilty is a major theme here. Perhaps I should focus more on realizing that we as mothers will always feel guilty. Acknowledging that we will always feel guilty and moving forward without harping on it. So maybe we will always feel guilty, and accepting that is what we can do to lighten our load, our mental load, and decrease our own personal suffering. A client of mine had a babysitter who helped her pack her kids' lunches for the day. And she later found out that there was not enough food in those lunches, even though she had texted the babysitter a list and given her lunch suggestions. Of course, when she found out there wasn't enough food for lunch, she felt so awful. Picturing her kids hungry and not having enough food, she started thinking about that, and she was she was on the verge of obsessing over that one lunch until she put our work into action. And what she realized was she had the awareness that she was about to go down the rabbit hole. She was about to obsess. She kept thinking about the lunch, but it was over. Her pre-coaching self would have beaten herself up about it, she told me. But the current practice of the work that we do together allowed her to acknowledge her imperfections, that mistakes happen, that her kids are completely fine in very healthy weight percentiles, well fed and happy. And she was able to give herself grace and move on with her day, such that this incident, had it happened pre-coaching, would have taken up so much precious brain space and energy. And she felt with being able to just allow herself that mistake and imperfection, she was able to truly go on with her day and really feel much lighter. I would like to tell you also that I always make sure to do what I need to do to stay well, be it coaching or group therapy or alone time or connecting with dear friends. And I feel guilty any and all minutes that I take myself away from my children. However, it is not practical to be with them 24/7, and I wouldn't want to smother them either. My solution is, for mom guilt, that is, that knowing that I will feel guilty no matter what, and understanding that guilt and proceeding anyway. And the end product of this is truly inner peace and happiness, which is then transmitted to my children. And I want them to see that I take good care of my mental health so that they do the same someday when they're older. When you find yourself slipping into an old pattern or are triggered, give yourself space that you're not perfect and that you're working on it. Not being so hard on ourselves, which is really difficult to do because so many of us, mothers working in male-dominated fields, we strive for excellence, often demanding it from ourselves and others as well. Try to sit with yourself quietly and be okay with who you are and where you are right now. Be okay with who you were. What if, in practicing grace, we could know that we are doing our best? And honestly, we're probably doing better than our mothers did because we understand where we came from and we are trying to heal old trauma and wounds, trying to do better, trying to care for our mental health because these things have become so much more mainstream all over social media. There's a ton of information and we're able to absorb that and do better. We have the opportunity to do better than they did for ourselves and for our kids. And that's not to say anything bad about our parents' generation. It's just that it was a different time with different priorities and different resources. So, of course, this work that we're doing, there is a ripple effect there. Imagine our children giving themselves grace more naturally than we do because it was modeled to them while they were growing up. What? That's incredible, right? That the work that we are doing is so critical in healing ourselves, but also improving generational mental health. And as we do this, so will our children and pass it down to theirs. If you want to dive deeper into this work, I have a handful of spots opening up for private clients. My process helps professional moms with the seemingly perfect life who are silently suffering on the inside to know that they're not alone and that they can reclaim their confidence and power to have the life that they want, even when that feels impossible. Apply to work with me and schedule a call today. Prianca Naik MD Coaching.as.me, link in the show notes, and I will talk to you next week. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Empowering Working Moms podcast, Real Talk with Dr. Prianca Naik. If you are ready to get unstuck and out of survival mode to live your best life, I want to invite you to book a free 30-minute consultation call with me. To get started, visit PriancaNaikMDCoaching.as.me. Link in the show notes.